something that we both consider absolutely embarrassing. And we're going back to the state of Ohio for this one. And frankly, there's a lot to get into here. So I'm just gonna share the headline with us right now. Ohio State Representative Josh Williams introduced the O.H.I.O Sportsmanship Act. The act would make it a felony offense to plant the flag in the center of the shoe. Kelsey, go first. I don't got anything nice to say. Mom told me not to say anything nice at all, so I got to think this through.
Okay, so I think this is unique in the aspect, before I get into my conversations today with actual Ohio State fans about this. The unique part about this is that it is anyone who plants a flag
Literally anybody
at midfield at Ohio Stadium, meaning there could be somebody who plants an Ohio State flag at midfield that is charged with a felony. First of all, where are we at with a country when we're charging people with felonies for something like putting a flag in the ground, putting a post in a ground? How is that a felony? First of all. Secondly, who's going to keep in touch with? Are the same cops that were keeping them apart going to be the same cops that are going to do this? Like, okay, you have cameras, sure, but then you have to do extradition laws for out-of-state players, and there's a whole ball game of problems with all of this that I just don't even have the brain to get into right now. I don't have the legal background to address this and think it's a terrible idea beyond that. But I will say this. In my conversations with actual Ohio State fans who live in Columbus, most are supportive of the bill and think it should be passed. DJ's reaction sums up my reaction live in person with folks saying, what? That all the things we could possibly do, and this is the one, and I don't like to get political, but if this is what you're wasting your time on in a state capitol, drafting a bill called the O.H.I.O Sportsmanship Act.
Oh, no, the O.H.I.O. There are dots in
You're
there.
right,
So
my bad.
Spelled it out on us even worse.
My bad. I'm surprised you didn't call it the, in quotation marks, copyright symbol, O.H.I.O Sportsmanship Act at the rate they're going. I don't get it. Maybe if this is a national landmark, it's not. Maybe it's a state landmark, it's not. It's nothing of significance other than a large stadium. It's no different than me going in my front lawn and putting a flag of whatever I choose to that is non-offensive to the public in the ground. I can go put an Auburn flag with an FU Bama flag next to it in the middle of my lawn, and just that's not a problem. It should be a problem.
But honestly, just for that.
Yeah, I don't know if they make those either. I need to get one. But anyways, yeah, that's not a problem. But somehow getting the crap beat out of you results in a full-on act of state representatives to bring a sportsmanship act into it because your team couldn't handle and your fan base couldn't handle getting the snot beat out of you for the fourth straight season. What? And mind you, I'm very nice to people when I talk to them in person, and I try not to be mean. And I try not to say what's actually on my mind. But today was the most difficult conversations I've ever had about sports-related things because I had to try to not yell at them for being stupid. It's a bunch of people who I feel like they have never played a game of football in their life. They don't understand how much respect you can have for another player at the same time as getting the crap beat out of you. Yeah, it's upsetting. It's embarrassing. If you want to fight somebody after the game, that's a you problem. That's not a competitive problem. That's not a sportsmanship problem. That's a person problem. You have 60 minutes to beat the living snot out of another person. And you know what? When I was playing, when I beat the snot out of the living snot out of the defensive lineman across from me, I had more respect for that player after the game and had no problem walking up and shaking their hand, whether they were talking smack or not. I didn't care because after the game, that's a respect. You beat the crap out of each other for 60 minutes and you both survived. You both made it through. And you know what? If somebody got injured on that field, everybody feels terrible about it. There should. And if you don't, there's a problem in culture involved in there. There should be no bill or act presented. This is dumb. This is just people who don't belong in sports trying to put their neck in sports, and it doesn't belong here. And I'm going to take a line that was told to an athlete at one point in time, and I'm going to apply it here. Shut up and make real laws.
Shut up and craft.
Like, this is
Shut up and
dumb.
write.
This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. If you don't like getting beat, hire a coach that can actually beat the other team. Get players that can actually win a game that matters. Do not rely on some kind of form of government, because you know what happens when government gets involved with sports? Go back to the 1960s and find out.
Well, see, you took this for a much more political turn than I thought, so I'm going to take this in a much more simplest terms. This might be the biggest weenie hut commander, general, senior, anything I've ever seen in my entire life. I'll read it. You don't want them to plant the flag in your stadium? How about you don't get clapped 4 years in a row? It's really that simple. B, should they do it? No, is it kind of a dickheaded move on Michigan's part? Yeah, that's why you should have beat them, so that didn't happen. Or go do it in their stadium next year. You mentioned, too, they do not need to be passing a law to make this a felony. Oh, but what about the fight afterwards? People fight. That's okay. This should be the NCAA saying, all right, no flagging for anybody. Then that's a fine, school fine or whatever it be. That's not a state legislator's job to make it illegal just in our stadium. Nobody can do it. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Okay, not ever seen, but it's the most ridiculous thing I've seen this week, guaranteed. Just absolutely. I really think I'm starting to develop like a third man boob or something from the amount of soyness coming from this statement. Like, this is just absolutely unbelievable what is going on right now. Wet tissue paper in a monsoon is not this soft. Well, that's because it's disintegrated, but you get my point. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. I hope, as a former resident of the state of Ohio, that this does not pass, because the fair people of fair-mindedness will never be able to live this down, unfortunately. You will forever lose every argument because this will be thrown in their face. This is worse than the Deshaun Watson trade as far as Ohio sports go, if it gets signed into law. The fact, not quite yet. It's not that far yet, but this is the worst thing for Ohio sports that this is even brought up, and it would be even worse if it gets passed into law. This would be even more embarrassing than the whole the conundrum. Just absolutely ridiculous.
Here's what the felony would bring. It's a 5th-degree felony in the state of Ohio. It could bring up to 6 to 12 months in prison.
Embarrassing.
Yeah. Also, up to $2,500 fine and up to 5 years of community control probation. Examples of 5th-degree felonies in Ohio include breaking and entering, forgery, legitimate crimes, receiving stolen property, illegal gambling, and theft over $1,000. All valid. Now, what happens if you get a 5th-degree felony? You will have difficulty finding employment, getting a loan, or being admitted into college, and it can also negatively impact child custody, adoption, immigration, and volunteering.
Basically, you're screwed.
Yeah. So it takes 10 years to potentially expunge a 5th-degree felony from somebody's background. So you're telling me that you're going to penalize somebody for 12 years before, during, or after a game if they plant a flag in the center of the field? Just make it make sense.
I want to also add to, like, this literally only specifically says Ohio State, and they said, so that's not even every stadium in Ohio. That is literally just this one. So if you do like Nippert Field in Cincinnati or anything else, no problem. Which Ohio State fans, Kelsey likes to make fun of you as much as the next guy, and sometimes some of you annoy me. But as a whole, I feel sorry for 90% of you that this is going to be forever. This is going to be attached to you, because no matter what you say, this is going to be thrown at your face if this gets signed into law. And a lot of you do not deserve that. Some of you,
I would like to.
A lot of you know.
I would like to redo my fan rankings as the worst fan base and bump Ohio State up to number 1 from number 1B. I think they firmly hold the opportunity for being number 1 just for the stupidity. Followed shortly. No, they're still 1B, but it's closer than it should be to Alabama.
All because of one man has to be a complete and utter weenie and put this out there, and then of course people will get behind it. Just
yeah. This puts Ohio State fans up there with a guy who legitimately poisoned an entire ecosystem in Auburn, Alabama, because they put a T-shirt on a statue and didn't permanently put the T-shirt on a statue. Literally put it up there with Scotch tape.
Before we get out of here, I'm gonna wrap up the irony of it's called the sportsmanship bill when the team who started the fight is your team. Yep. Like, your team was the one who was like, no, we can't have that. We got to fight about it. Which Okay, you want to fight about it, that's fine. I'm the same person last week said after Trevor Lawrence got decapitated, shout out to Evan Ingram for trying to fight him afterwards. That's a situation where I think it's permitted. At the end of the
It's
game,
during the game.
and it's defending your guy. Right now, you're defending a piece of grass after you just got whipped across it for 60 minutes. Like, well, not whipped. It was a close game. You get my point. You lost for the fourth year in a row. This is embarrassing. I hate this for sports. Normally, we like to end on something funny, but this is funny in all the wrong ways, unfortunately. But
Yep.
let's just hope that enough sane people are like, this is stupid. We have more important things to do, or this is stupid. Nobody deserves to have this as a literal law in the state, along with everything you pointed out earlier about enforcing it on top of it. Because someone's going to test it right away. Just
Guaranteed. It might be me. I might go try to get a 5th-degree felony just to see what happens.
Well, you're an Ohio resident. That might be harder to just get out of this to it. But you know what? If you want to test it, just let me know so I can.
I'll see if we can get a sponsor, and maybe Michigan. Somebody from Michigan will sponsor me to do it.
Now we're getting into a can of worms here that I don't think we're quite ready for. But let us know down below what you all think of this as well, too. Thank you all so much for joining us this week on the High Low Sports Podcast. Hopefully you're having a wonderful holiday season ahead, and we will see you all again next week.